Well, it's crazy sacking and crazy panic season in the EFL Championship, and today we've got another manager special, and this time it's the second of the season again for Millwall, who have sacked Joe Edwards as head coach and replaced him with a returning club legend in Neil Harris. We'll talk about the new man and the appointment in a minute, as Millwall find themselves embroiled in a relegation battle for now. But let's start, as always, by rewinding a little bit back to November and focusing on the former man, Joe Edwards, because he came in at the start of November, and if we go back to that manager special, the one thing that we highlighted was the change of style, because it was very clear the type of coach Joe Edwards was and the type of team he wanted in the future from his other coaching outlets with England's youth teams and from a coaching capacity and youth work previously. And the one thing we warned against was, look, Gary Rowett had a very imprinted style at Millwall. Now, you can say whether it's your type of football or not. I personally think it was incredibly successful and efficient for a team that continued to overachieve despite the disaster at the end of last season. The reason we were encouraged when Joe Edwards came in is because he said, look, I'm not going to change it all overnight. We're going to go slowly. We're going to adapt gradually, and we'll gradually imprint my style rather than trying to do it all at once. And then he went and tried to do it all at once. After that brilliant first game with a 4-0 win against Sheffield Wednesday, they went multiple weeks without winning a game before 3 on the bounce over the festive period. And prior to his sacking in all competitions, it was 8 without a win and just 1 point out of 21 from the last 7 championship games, culminating in that, well, pretty damaging 2-0 defeat at home to Sheffield Wednesday last weekend. So looking at the fixtures coming up, which we'll get to again later, you can kind of see now why was the time. I mean, I've talked about it in some of the recent prediction shows. I know you want to change style and get better on the ball, etc. under Joe Edwards, but some of the players he was leaving out, when you look at their points per game record under Rowett earlier in the year, you look at people like Alan Campbell, who was involved in most of their victories. While he's not the best player in the world, at Luton we know one thing. He works so hard, he tracks runners, and you look at some of the way they conceded goals recently. I mean, they've actually got one of the worst records when it comes to conceding from open play in a championship, and they've also got a really poor record when it comes to scoring from open play, which shows that the shift of style was not working too much, in addition to the fact that they've lost their crown as the best team from set pieces in the division, which they held last season. So definitely signs that they weren't utilising their strengths, and some of the team selections and some of the style of play to the players in the team. I get what he wanted to do for the long term, but you can't just go in and try and throw it in straight away. And I think it will be a huge learning curve for Joe Edwards, who may now have to probably start at a slightly lower level and build back up again. But without Joe Edwards, Millwall have turned back to a former club legend, a record goal scorer and a former promotion-winning manager in Neil Harris, who, ironically, had only just taken the Cambridge job and has become one of the first men I can remember to have 3 jobs progressively in 3 higher divisions this season, starting by being sacked in League 2 with Gillingham, prematurely in my view, going to Cambridge in League 1, starting okay, and then being poached by Championship Millwall, with a chance still of keeping them up. This is a very good season for Neil Harris on the CV. But let's have a look at the statement and see what's been said. The 46-year-old joins as the Lions' new head coach on a contract till the end of next season, with Dave Livermore coming back, another Millwall legend, and Adam Barrett, who will become assistant head coach, someone who, a few murmurings that people had wanted him out of the club. He obviously managed at the Den between 2015 and 19, got to promotion finals twice in a row in the League One playoffs, won the second one, and ended very well with his first season in the Championship. Before the second year, it maybe went a little bit less successfully, but overall, a very good job done by Neil Harris there. He also scored 138 times for them as a player, and the chairman's very happy about getting him in. And of course, he's mentioned the fact that he's excited, he's enthusiastic, he's jumped at the chance and all that, but of course he would. I mean, that doesn't tell us a huge amount about anything other than Neil Harris loving Millwall and having a chance to jump to a higher division. I'm not sure Cambridge will be thrilled or agree with the bits about unity and professionalism, but for Millwall, this is the type of manager they need. Whether it's the right person for the long term is something we mentioned in the prediction show. Is it the right man for the long term? Probably not. Is it the right type of man for this situation? You have to argue probably yes. I mean, we all talked about it before. Gary Rowett did an excellent job, but after what happened on the final day last year, after some of the unfortunate scenes off the pitch in the summer, of course, affecting the owner at the time, and a knock-on effect that's obviously had on the family this season. I do feel the summer would have been a good point to cut ties and maybe allow Millwall to brew from the summer. So I feel that might have helped someone like a Joe Edwards more. But for now, Neil Harris is in, and we know what style of play we're going to get. We're going to get a side that plays to the Millwall players, going to be a lot closer to what we saw from Gary Rowett's team rather than from what Joe Edwards was trying to do. He's created sides this season, even in Gillingham, who were incredibly tight defensively, went on a massive run towards the end of last year, were incredibly good from set pieces and from counter-attacks and crosses, and that's where the bulk of the goals came from. So I would expect to see a few changes to the team. I would expect to see Tom Bradshaw starting again up front every week. I would expect to see people like Campbell and a couple of other workhorses coming into the side. I think you're going to see a workman-like team for the rest of this year, as Neil Harris aims to do the job by any which means possible. If we compare recent records, of course, Joe Edwards, we mentioned, won 4 in 19. He got a 21% win rate. Neil Harris, you look at his recent jobs, well, 41% at Millwall, where he did a brilliant job. 38% at Cardiff, where again, he didn't do too badly at all. And then 34 at Gillingham, but a lot of draws. And 35 at Cambridge, where he just started to get a tune out of the team. But I do feel that this is the right appointment for now. I'm not sure that offering him a deal beyond this season, while it was probably necessary to entice him away from a new club, I'm not sure it's the right thing for the long term of Millwall. It does feel like a regressive step in a long-term project, but I guess they would argue needs must at the moment. And after that defeat against Sheffield Wednesday, you can kind of see why the timing's now, because yes, there's a bit of a free hit at Southampton this weekend where he can maybe learn a bit more about his team, maybe just try and imprint a few, treat it as a training session almost. But then you look at the three after that: Watford at home, then Blackburn away and Birmingham at home. Three sides that are in that little pack just above them. And of course, battling not to be sucked back into the relegation battle. But then you go towards the end of the year, and my God, the finish to Millwall season could be huge. Rotherham at the start of April, followed by Huddersfield, yes, then Leicester, but then Cardiff, Sunderland, and then the final two games, Plymouth at home and Swansea away. Now, I said this a week ago, if Millwall keep Joe Edwards in charge, they will go down, because the way they played against Ipswich, the way they were carved open, the way they played against Sheffield Wednesday, the QPR game was another striking one. They just looked all at sea. They looked so open. They looked so poor and toothless going forward, and they were getting carved open at will from open play, which never happened to Millwall sides under Harris or under Rowett. So you look ahead to now and you think, shut up shop, stop conceding goals galore, and play to your strengths, which are going to be set pieces, are going to be wide areas and counter-attacks. And we're going to see a very different Millwall team to what Joe Edwards was trying to do. There's no doubt in that. But this gives them a fighting chance, because with the improvement of Sheffield Wednesday and with QPR, who have both adapted styles from what their manager would like to do, Millwall have got themselves in very big trouble now, and of course could fall into the relegation zone should they lose at Southampton, as many will expect them to do. And that's why the little run after is so important. We talked about the games with Birmingham and Blackburn. Let's be honest, they're 5 points away from that. Virtually everyone from 15th or maybe even Cardiff down could yet get sucked into a relegation battle. And that's going to be the key for Millwall. Can they drag more teams into it? And can they win the games against the teams around them? Because if they win the 5 or 6 of those, they should be in pretty good nick. One of the other things delving through the stats that became a bit of an issue for Joe Edwards at Millwall was the fact that they were conceding second half goals so frequently in that last sort of 15 minutes or so. You go back everywhere, even to the start of December, maybe even earlier than that, going back to his second game in charge against Coventry from then on. So many late goals conceded in that last 15. And one of the other things that's been a bit strange, we talk about their toothlessness in front of goal. Only 31 scored this season, which is the worst outside the bottom three in Stoke. Is at home, they failed to score in over 40% of their games, despite the fact that their expected goals is higher than their expected goals against. It's a really weird statistic. Millwall are side you normally associate with strong home form, but of course attendances have been dropping at the Den. The quality of football has been dropping. And when you see that style of football for Joe Edwards, which maybe wasn't going to work in the short term, because Millwall, a bit like my club Luton, I guess, demands that sort of passionate, front-footed, aggressive style of play. And it's something that they just weren't seeing. And the soft underbelly is really hard to take when you've had a side that's solid for so many years. So Neil Harris has got a big job on his hands here, but after a promotion last time and doing a good job, he's going to be a confident man. And of course, he'll be giving everything to keep Millwall up. So let me know down in the comments if you think he will. I'm going to be honest with you now because we ask these questions at the end normally. I do think this gives them a much better chance of staying up. I can't say it confidently, but if I had to go for it, I'd probably say yes, he probably will do now if he reverts them back to their style, because they were only doing it a few months ago under Gary Rowett. But then the second part of that question is normally, will he see out his contract? And for next season, I just can't see it being a long-term solution. I hope I'm proven wrong. And frankly, Millwall fans won't care if he keeps them safe and then keeps them above the dotted line next year. They can then start to progress again with a new manager. But for Neil Harris, the job is about keeping him up this year. And then he'll be a hero again no matter what. The fans will be back on side with him. And hopefully, Millwall can then prepare for another season in the Championship for their sake. But that's just what I think of the Millwall appointment of Neil Harris. The reappointment, you should say. But it doesn't really matter what I think, does it? What do you think if you're a Millwall fan or a fan of one of the rival clubs in and around that relegation battle? If you're a Millwall fan, are you more or less confident of staying up with Neil Harris at the helm? And if you're a rival fan, how does this make you feel? Did you think they were doomed under Joe Edwards and this gives them a chance? Or do you think that going back to Neil Harris is an uninspiring move? Let us know your thoughts down in the comments below. And if you did enjoy this one, please do chuck a thumbs up on it. You can see our Championship matchday predictions from Wednesday up in the eye above. That covers all of the upcoming weekend fixtures, including Southampton v Millwall. We've also got our weekend Premier League predictions up there and so much more as well. But thank you very much for getting involved and watching along as always. Thank you to our sponsor HelloFresh UK. You can find a link in the description below for them. 60% off your first box plus free delivery and helping to support the channel. Check out the link in the description. We'll see you again here soon as the Championship predictions return for another match day next week.